Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill, and Jason, I had the pleasure of spending 4 days together this week, so it was fun.
Yeah.
Did some cooking, did some TV watching. So we'll talk about that later on. But let's start off with the NBA semifinals, I guess we'll call them.
Chris Paul made the conference finals with a sweep.
Yeah. And he looks absolutely amazing. And like we said in the very first basketball preview show, that I said he was the difference maker that could have made all the difference in the world for Milwaukee. But I underestimated what he's going to be able to do in Phoenix. So kudos to Chris Paul and the role players around him and Booker and.
Well, Bridges and Ayton have
really
come.
good.
Yeah,
Bridges looks amazing.
Bridges looks fantastic. Ayton has been playing some excellent basketball. And then you figure this is a team that went perfect in the bubble last year, but just hadn't got it together in time to make the tournament. Mm-hmm. And then this year they were the 2 seed. So they've been doing this now for give it a season and a half, give or take. They've been playing excellent basketball.
Excellent basketball. The coach, and I like what the coach had to say. He says, I had Chris Paul first time around. I didn't listen. I had my own way of doing things. He goes, I've learned, we've adjusted, and it's really a good situation.
And you figure,
for Monty Williams too.
Yeah, and you look historically, like, for whatever reason, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were just oil and water, did not get along together. That was a bad basketball situation for him.
Yeah.
When he went to Houston, I know they won, I think, 60-something games, but at the same time, like, he and Harden did not play well together. Harden just sat out possessions when Chris Paul had the ball. Like, Harden was a very selfish player back then. He doesn't seem to appear to be now in Brooklyn, but maybe that helped him learn that this isn't the way to play basket. I don't, but I feel like Chris Paul's had some, just the wrong fit in it. Now it seems like he's the perfect mentor to, this team of young players that can just ball.
Yeah.
And Ayton, like I said, I mean, Jokic is the league MVP, one of the best offensive players on the planet. So he's going to get his numbers. He's going to get his double-double. But Ayton's really been, playing well. I don't know what else to say. Like,
Very well. And looking like a top 3 pick.
Yeah, looking like he could be one of the best big men going forward. Like I said, Bridges, who was a good player at Villanova, right?
Yeah, but I didn't think he was this good.
No, but he's...
again, he's in a situation now where he can really utilize his talents.
Right, and he gets to be the 3rd or 4th guy. Booker is probably taking the majority of the defense is like, magnetically pulled towards him. Chris Paul is going to get you the ball where you want it. And then he's got a lot of athleticism. Like, he's great at finishing. He's got good body control. And
he's amazing at the speed in which he goes to the hoop.
Yeah.
That's what has impressed me. I mean, like these passes and everything. I mean, he's going, you're not going to stop him. But when he's going that fast, he's past you already. And I was really blown away by that. He's probably been the biggest surprise for me. I thought he was more of a role player type, but he's a really dependable third option.
He is. And now you're looking at, now they wait for a game or a series that could easily go 7, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. Right? Because maybe you don't want to sit around this long, especially when you're all healthy. But you either get revenge against the Clippers or you get to play the Jazz.
But I think they need to. I think Paul needs the rest.
Okay.
Booker looked drained last night. He looked exhausted too. But I figure they're going to be off at least 4 days, maybe 5.
Yeah. And now I think one of the things we talked about offline before this is affecting the next series, and that's injuries, because Donovan Mitchell now looks like he's a little banged up.
Yeah.
And that team needs Donovan Mitchell.
Very much so. I mean, they're dependent on him. And each of the teams now, Kyrie Irving went out last night. Harden's not back yet.
Yeah.
KD's obviously the best of the 3, but if you've only got to worry about one option, and in Milwaukee, Giannis looked amazing yesterday, better than he's looked in a month. And I now that's up for grabs. I mean, I thought that was looking like it was going to be a sweep.
Well, Brooklyn looked like they were going to roll through just the entire thing through the finals with all 3 of the, it seemed like even with 2 of those guys healthy. And now, from what when you hear like league insiders, it sounds like Harden is not close to being ready.
No, he's definitely not going to play the next game, which could put him down 3-2.
And, I almost feel like if I'm Brooklyn, as crazy as this sounds, like if it looks like I can get Harden or Kyrie back for Game 6, Kevin Durant coming off an injury, I might just throw my reserves out there in game. I know it sounds dumb to put yourself down a game, but I don't want to expend KD. As the one guy. Going.
It's a good theory, though. It's a good theory.
Yeah, like I know the NBA doesn't, but I think in the playoffs it's sort of like, let's get our team as good as we can be. Because Milwaukee has not looked good. I mean, Brooklyn, they're not healthy, and even when Milwaukee plays, like they don't look great by any stretch.
No, that's as good as I've seen Milwaukee look.
Yeah, and again, that's when you had a bunch of injuries and they lose Kyrie. I mean, if Kyrie stayed healthy, like Milwaukee hit him with their best shot in the beginning, and it was like a 2-point game when Kyrie went out. So, and I think Milwaukee, no matter what happens, I feel like they need a coach with a different philosophy as far as what to do with Giannis.
Yeah, they might need that. I agree. They probably do need to change.
Because I don't think Giannis is he's a competent player when it comes to making the right decisions, but I don't think he's, an offense initiator. Like, I feel like, I've heard the comparison, like he's much more Shaq, and he is such physically dominant. And, in the regular season, when the defense isn't as tight, you put him in a half-court offense and you get that wall going. He's not a good shooter. He's shooting like 50% on his free throws, which is the worst he's shot in his career.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And, again, as we said, like, I think every team in the league is like, good, you got Giannis 30 feet from the hoop. Fantastic. Play all day like that,
Yeah.
Because he's not like Embiid, who can really shoot, or Karl Anthony Towns, who can really shoot,
No, I think this year, more than any of the last 3 to 5 years, that health is going to be probably one of the dominant issues to who wins.
Yeah.
The healthiest team's got a much better shot. Phoenix is healthy.
And, I know we've ragged on him before and the national media tends to do so, but playoff P continues to be just a real disappointment.
I don't think there's anybody on that team that can control him like on the other when he was with LeBron. I think LeBron got the most out of him.
When did LeBron and Paul George play together?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Rondo.
No, I'm talking about playoff P, who's their second.
Okay, well, he had a good game yesterday.
He had good stats yesterday. He didn't play well yesterday, I don't think.
Yeah.
But you figure, was it when he played against LeBron and the Cavs and he was on the Pacers going head-to-head with LeBron when he was like 26, 27, you were like, look out, this guy's just going to be the best.
Yeah.
And you look at him in Oklahoma City, he shrunk in big moments. And you look at him now and he's not the consistent number 2. You're paying all that, like, you basically have a big 2 in Kawhi and Paul George, and Paul George just isn't a number 2.
No, but Kawhi is definitely the number 1.
Yeah, Kawhi's fantastic. Like, I don't think there's ever been any question about how good Kawhi is, but yeah.
He's not showing any signs of age at all, I don't think.
No, last year in the bubble you saw a little bit. It looked like he was a little gimpy, but...
Yeah, but not now.
No. And I think he's enough with Donovan Mitchell hurt, depending on how soon he can come back to prominence. But I feel like Kawhi can carry them through that series. And then you get Chris Paul revenge against the Clippers, which would be a fun series, I think.
Yeah.
I really think the Suns,
again, looking at my predictions, which have been terrible for the last 18 months, and I think I had Utah and Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Well, it's dubious now.
Well, and again, as we spoke just the last 5 minutes, it's, Mitchell hurt, Harden hurt, Irving hurt. But I think if Brooklyn doesn't make it in, like if they're hurt and they can't get through, I think Phoenix has got a great shot of finally winning that title and Chris Paul finally getting his title.
You know what? I would say I would agree, but I don't want to curse them.
No.
I would love to see them win. I don't want to curse them. They're fun to watch. That's the other thing about Phoenix. They are very fun to watch.
And then I guess the one series we've given no attention to is Philadelphia-Atlanta.
No.
Joel Embiid, of course, is, playing fantastic at times. He's a little bit banged up at times. Simmons can't shoot. I think with Kevin Huerter out, I think that hurts a lot of their length on the perimeter. And I think Danny Green being hurt for the Sixers is actually a bonus because he can't play defense and he's not being good on offense this year. So If that's more minutes to Thibault and Maxey, I think that's a positive. But I think it's going to be Philadelphia, squeaking through.
Squeaking through that series or squeaking through to the finals?
Squeaking through that series.
Okay.
I just think that, Trae Young can't quite do what he did before. I think Kevin Huerter missing him really hurts. He was another big body they could bring out there that could score and play defense. He's gone. And, assuming Embiid can stay on his feet for the next couple of games, I think they can win that in 6. But I don't see them, like I said, assuming Brooklyn can't get their 3 back together, and it looks pretty dubious at this point, I do think, and again, I know you don't want to jinx them because you like them, but Phoenix looks like the best team.
Well, who could you see coming if Brooklyn doesn't get out of the East because of the injuries?
Yeah.
Who do you see coming out of the East? Milwaukee or Philly?
I think Philly. I mean, they're 2 really flawed basketball teams. But I do think, and I wouldn't have probably said this the last 2 years ago, but I think when healthy, I think Embiid is the best player in that series. And I think Middleton has been really disappointing in these playoffs a little bit, he might be playoff KM, just like playoff P. Just a a guy that, you need him to, you really need that guy to contribute if you're Milwaukee. And, back to Chris Paul, I think, I'm not sure I think Oklahoma City basically said they would do whatever Chris Paul wanted. But you gave up 3 picks for Drew Holiday, 4 picks for Drew Holiday. And it just feels like if you could have I think you could have had Chris Paul for less, and I think he'd be helping more.
Agreed. I think Chris Paul would have made that team in my undisputed favorite to go.
Because I think
I would have said that in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, because I think Chris Paul is a legitimate, 1 to 1A sort of player still in this league, but certainly a 1B. Whereas I feel like Drew Holiday is a great third star, and I don't know what Chris Middleton is. And then, like I said, once you get past Giannis, who I think Chris Paul could get a lot more out of him with his, his ability as a great point guard. I think they would have found some. And I did learn something surprising, though, from basketballreference.com. You would think if you ran Drew Holiday and Giannis in a pick and roll, that'd be a pretty nice thing. But apparently Giannis is pretty terrible in the pick and roll.
You would not think that.
Well, you would think that would be one of their go-to plays. They'd be running 10 or 15 times a game. Where you got Holiday on the wing, Giannis comes, sets the pick, and then, that's a nasty 1-2 combo. But that's something besides the free throw shooting, which Giannis needs to get much better at. Which also brings me to something I was thinking about the other day. Kawhi Leonard, when he came into the league, was not a good shooter. Now he's a good shooter. Is it just coaching? Did Kawhi already have that all along? What is it, I mean, I'm sure that NBA players, and, I know some people think, blah, 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 but I'm sure they're all working very hard to get better at what they do best, but,
That's a great question, because he is a very unbelievable shooter right now.
And he was not a good shooter coming out of, I mean, that's one of the reasons he fell to the middle of the first round.
No, he was like a rebounder and drive to the hoop.
Yeah.
Defender.
And we've seen some guys that all of a sudden learn how to shoot in the pros, and some guys that just never do. And I know with a guy like Shaq, people say that his hands were so big and he was so tall that bizarrely it was harder to shoot. And, the closest I could ever imagine coming to that is using a tiny basketball on a basketball court, but it's still not exactly the same. But, Hey,
Artis Gilmore was bigger than Shaq, and he's in the Hall of Fame with the highest field goal percentage. Bill Walton was 7 foot, and he's a great shooter.
Giannis, KD and Joker are both over 7 feet tall. Kevin Durant's like a stealthy 7-footer.
Yeah, he is, and he's a great shooter.
And the Joker and Embiid and even Karl Anthony Towns can all shoot at that size. So, and again, I don't really know what it is, because it just feels like those guys are probably putting in the hours. Like, I can't believe Giannis isn't he seems like the kind of guy that's putting in extra time to work on his shot. And I don't know, is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? Like, is that Drew, whatever his name is, that coach of the Spurs, is he that much of a, shot whisperer?
is unbelievable. And speaking of unbelievable, Chris Paul's performance yesterday shooting mid-range jump shots was off the charts.
And I still contend, I understand math. I have a master's degree. I taught math in high school for a couple of years in between my undergrad and my graduate degree. I understand that 3 is more than 2. And if you shoot 3-point percentage you shoot 33% from 3 as opposed to 41% from 2, eventually the math adds up that it's better to shoot from 3. Like the numbers, I get it. I can understand the math. But I can say, and again, obviously I did not play on a professional college or, level of basketball. But if you've got an ability to shoot from all 3 levels, you're much more difficult to guard. Yes. Like if I know all you're going to do is shoot threes or take the ball to the hole, I can stay up on you tighter.
Wall, or you can just push it out.
Yeah. Whereas I hated playing against guys with a nasty 15-foot pull-up. And again, it's not to say that everybody should be shooting it, but I mean, it's part of it makes you a better 3-point shooter if I can't, if I have to worry about you also pulling up.
Well, given the love that Chris Paul's getting for the mid-range jumper and the coverage he got on ESPN today, that could be the new suit du jour.
Yeah. And again, I know they want to throw out all these...
Jumper an unbelievable amount of times in the next week and a half.
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, the truism of like I said, we can understand the math, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right call.
Right.
And it's the same thing, when they use the word small ball. It's sort of ridiculous to say small ball when, Giannis, 7 feet tall, Joker, 7 feet tall, LeBron, 6'9", 280, or whatever the hell he is. Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson. It's not small ball, it's just more skilled ball,
Good way of looking at it.
Because, the players are bigger than they've ever been. And it's just that you can't have a stiff anymore. And the same with the 3, it's not that you want your 7, I don't think you want your 7-footer standing out there shooting threes. You just want him to be able, when he goes go out there to clear out for your guards, that you have to follow him out there because he's skilled enough to hit it. So it's more just being overall more skilled as opposed to them trying
it's spreading the floor and creating more opportunities because there's more room.
But all these people, especially on some of the analytical sites, want to be like, no, the number, and it's like, what the numbers basically tell you is bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled is what you want to be. And that's never changed since day one of NBA.
Nor will it ever.
Nor will it ever. Obviously, we don't want you to just be able to shoot from one spot because you're easy to guard, you're easy to figure out. That's... Yep. And then, when we were talking yesterday in person, was it yesterday? Or the day before? And I think this goes to a little bit of, a combination of, we'll pull in baseball and basketball and really all sports, but the notion of what's the phrase for it when they call it basically the difference between cheating and being like a savvy veteran.
Yes
because I feel like life, as we've all learned probably from the time we're about 2 or 3 on, it's not a fair thing. But you would hope that people play by the rules in certain situations. And when it comes to a lot of things, that's simply not going to happen. Maybe that's just the way humans are built. I don't know. But, it seems like there's got to be a difference between... I think it was because we were watching college baseball. And a player, clearly stuck his entire leg onto the plate to try to get on base.
Right.
And, if he got away with it, they would call, well, that's a smart, heady play. But at the same time, it's cheating.
Yes, and to the credit of the umpires in the replay, they didn't get away with it.
No.
Which really surprised me. I thought they were not going to do anything. And not only did they take him off of first base, they called him out.
Yeah.
Which is what you have to do. There's got to be a penalty that's appropriate, not a warning. Not a calling it a ball instead of a strike. A penalty that merits decision. That was a big decision.
Yeah. And not to get too grandiose, but I just wonder, I got to go to a few basketball camps where we had, some NBA coaches and NBA players there teaching. And there were different times where I was taught how to cheat. When you're under, ways to get away with grabbing a shirt, putting when you're boxing out, putting your foot on top of their foot, just little weight, and it always sort of rubbed me the wrong way at the time, I mean, obviously you're just trying to do what you're supposed to do in the camp. You want to impress the people that are obviously ahead of you.
And like you said, it was presented in the idea of gamesmanship, though.
Yeah. And I know they said, it's not your job to do all the rules. It's the ref's job to enforce them. But I don't love it.
And I'm sure most of our listeners have watched the Garrett Cole press conference this week where he was asked a question and he just really couldn't answer it. And now, supposedly, the umpires are going to be given a directive from Major League Baseball as to what to do and how to do it to check out the pitchers not adding, something to the baseball. And I was watching a game yesterday where somebody just pointed out, given all the cameras in the game of baseball for a telecast,
yeah,
you could have one camera focused on a pitcher the entire time, and you'd know if he was doctoring baseball or not, if you really wanted to do that.
Right. And you could also do it in a way where if you're Major League Baseball, you could send a memo around to the teams and being like, look, this is becoming an issue. We're going to keep it in-house. We're going to follow the pitcher. And then we're going to send the team a memo and to be like, look, this is your warning. Don't do it again. And maybe you save some guys some, embarrassment. And you save the league some embarrassment. But you just sort of let it be known that you don't want to do this. But I also saw some other guys on Major League Baseball, like some former players, that were basically, supporting Garrett Cole, being like, you always hate when somebody's like, go check his glove. Because it's not that you're mad that they're accusing you of cheating. It's that everybody knows that everybody is doing it. And it's like, so we're just going to go back and forth and we'll call you on your glove. You'll call us on our glove. Like, what's the point? Mm-hmm. But then it becomes that weird thing we talked about with, Houston winning. And it's like, where stealing signs naturally by getting a runner on second base, that's okay. But taking it to the next technical level, which is what the Astros did, not okay.
Right.
And it sort of becomes this weird, just the, if you give an inch, they're going to take a mile. Start with a tight leash as opposed to a loose leash. Like, if you're saying this amount of cheating is okay, but then if you take it to this far, it's not. It seems like a weird, place to be.
It does seem weird. It seems very contradictory and very confusing.
And again,
especially if you're a young kid coming up, you're
right.
confused. Am I supposed to do whatever it takes to win, or am I supposed to play within the framework of the game? What am I supposed to do? And then, if you're a fan, what do you want to know?
Right. And as I sit up upon my high horse and, spout out my opinions, but I mean, as someone that's also worked with youth in the past, and, maybe we'll do so again in the future, like, when the role models are doing the bad things, how can you expect society ever to become a better, more fair place if, they're being taught from the best to do it this,
Yeah.
And again, maybe this is a Pandora's box situation and it's just, every man for himself, do whatever you can, lie, cheat, steal, Wall Street style. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's hope we figure it out. Hope it gets less of an issue and less of a distraction than it is right now.
Oh, I had an epiphany on the plane, Dad.
Okay.
I decided that having, been home with you and having to watch the sport of baseball and softball, I think the women's softball is far better than men's baseball.
Much faster.
Much faster. I like the 7 innings. You're getting all the same. You're still getting, the hits, the pitching, the diving catches. You're getting all of it, but it's a much faster, tighter sport. And I know you're never going to leave 9 innings for 7 innings and yada, yada, yada. But I enjoyed watching the Women's College World Series Finals far more than watching any of the men play, which is pretty rare for me.
I know, and I've been a proponent for a long time because I've gone to the Women's College World Series and I've seen the athleticism, and I like it. I like the speed of the game. I like the quality of the athletes. I like the enthusiasm, the passion. I love it. It's a really, really good game.
Yeah, they have a little bit of the European soccer thing where the teammates are doing the chanting and some different songs. I mean, they've got a little more of that involved, which is nice to see. And then, like I said, I mean, I know I've spoken against it because my point was if you're going to watch Major League Baseball and you're not going to watch a 3-hour game, but somehow if it was 2 hours and 49 minutes, you'd be you'd be into it. But women's softball is short and fast enough that I think it does become more like soccer or football, where it moves at a pace where you're like, okay, well, I'm not spending half my afternoon here watching. Game goes quick.
The little things, you don't have somebody stepping in and out of the batter's box 15 times, adjusting
No.
their gloves. They're just ready to go. And so the pace of the game is much faster.
Yeah, there's much less time. I mean, not that you're not. I mean, it's 2021. People are going to stare at their phones from time to time, regardless of what's on television. But like you said, it just moves at a pace where you're just like, okay, well, this is just one thing after another, just action, action, action. Which I think the men's game really needs to look at a way to try and adopt some of those things. Like I know the 7 and 9 innings thing's just not going to happen, but
well, they do play it if you're playing a doubleheader in Major League Baseball now.
Yeah.
Or college basketball, there are 7 innings, but only for doubleheader.
Right. And despite all the cheating,
listen, if you're only pitching a pitcher 5 or 6 innings anyhow, why not have a 7-inning game?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a fun. I enjoyed, like I said, I enjoyed watching that. Didn't really enjoy watching the men, so I don't know.
Yeah. I am watching Super Regionals, and there's 3 winner go homes today. I think pretty interesting. The number 1 seed Arkansas lost to an unseeded North Carolina State team. So North Carolina State, Vanderbilt, Stanford, and Tennessee have all qualified for the playoffs, and I'm assuming Texas did last night. And they were playing USF, and I have to say, I've watched each of the teams play. USF, I had more. They looked totally out of their element. They made so many mistakes and so many unforced errors. They looked like they couldn't handle the big stage and the pressure being there, which was really disappointing. They just blew a game last night early on. It was so bad I couldn't even watch it.
And how is
They were just so out of it.
Dallas Baptist, the Australia of college baseball, doing?
They're in the finals today against Virginia. Winner take all.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And that's a good one. And Notre Dame, Mississippi State. And Mississippi State has 14,000 people going to the games. And if you get a chance to flick it on. Because they have something built in left field that is like a wall of, it looks like a hotel, but it's suites.
Okay.
In Starkville, Mississippi, for college baseball.
Sounds
and
cool.
It was packed. They were crammed. They had like 25 people on each of these porches, and that's all it is it's a suite. It's a building full of suites. I've never seen it before for college baseball.
I mean, it's another reason to go to the. I'm sure that makes going to the game. It's like a different.
Well, the passion for college baseball it's fun to watch. These home fields have been really home field advantages, and the most interesting one has been the Dallas Baptist Virginia, because they're playing it in Columbia, South Carolina, where neither team was able to host. So that's where they're playing, and it's visibly different than the other games because the fans aren't a factor and there's no noise, and it's like you're just playing a game.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch, and I look forward to it. And I love this time of year. I love the College World Series. It's my favorite sporting event I've ever been to. Counting Super Bowls, counting the Masters, counting everything else. I love the impact that Omaha has on the game, and I like the fans, and I like how the fans travel, and it's like a big festival for a week.
Yeah. Very much so. Have we talked about the place that we went, Food Moments here? Have we talked about the ones you already covered the ones we went to?
I might have mentioned the Italian before.
Okay.
I did talk about walk-ons, though.
Yeah.
And, Jason and I, Jason went, we didn't talk about Link's Bistro, we talked about Link's Bistro.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're in the Tampa area, Liang's Bistro, just a very solid, nice Chinese place. They use really high-quality chicken. Can I ask to say that without, hopefully...
Yeah.
And, if you order extra spicy, you're definitely getting extra spicy, which I appreciate. And like I said, it's great service, good prices, and they have a pickup window, too, so...
It's like a multicultural because there's Chinese and Vietnamese both, right?
Right. And they do both really well. And again, I mean, I feel like a lot of Asian places typically have huge portions, but again, big portions. An incredible amount of packing. Like you get a small container, but you open it up and it almost feels like it has some sort of never-ending end to the bowl somehow.
Okay. And we ate it the Italian, which I've talked about before. It's very, very solid.
Yeah.
Italian food.
Yeah.
And then I cooked a couple times.
Yeah.
And I made my ribs recipe that I got from the meat church. If you ever go online looking for a good way to smoke or good way to barbecue, look up the meat church out of Texas. Great recipes.
And then
the
steak
ribs just melt in your mouth and fall off the bone.
And you should tell people how to make home fries too, for those that don't know, because those were excellent.
So it's a very simple recipe. I love hash browns and home fries, and so I usually order them when I go out. But I decided I'd bake a few potatoes and then cut them up and just fry them in butter and make my own home fries. And they're very simple and they're very tasty, and they're much tastier than a package of hash browns that you get at the grocery store.
And I think most people don't realize the bake first part.
Yeah. It's just like a baked potato that you brown into home fries. It's as simple as I can say it. But it's delicious. And I actually had it in a menu in a restaurant in California and just came back and decided that would be worth doing. So I do that.
Yeah. And you bake them for like an hour?
Yeah, an hour and 15, depending on the size of the potato.
Okay, yeah. Because I feel like I've tried to make it at home where we've sliced the potatoes really thin and then put them right in a pan. But I think it's the baking them first that really takes it to a different level.
Yeah, because then they're soft on the inside and then crispy on the outside when you bake them.
Which is what you want.
Whereas if you just put in raw potatoes, you're not getting that different
textures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important, very key.
And I also broke down and got Apple TV and get that all hooked up, my HBO Max, which I had access to, just never did anything with, and watched all the first season of Ted Lasso, which is not a side-splitting comedy, but just a really good, entertaining show.
Well, Mom laughed out loud more than I've heard her laugh out loud on almost anything.
Yeah, she did. But I thought it was a really good show with good characters and a good message. Yes. It was a very enjoyable watch. And we watched all 10 episodes in one day.
And, just because this is a sports podcast, the actual football / soccer is actually, everyone looks competent. Even like the main star, or I'm going to say the main star, but
yes.
One of the guys who was one of the lead actors is actually legitimately good at soccer. And,
That's a good point, because all the soccer is believable, and it's a good story.
Yeah. Now, there are some people that seem to be in the locker room that we don't really see on the field, on the pitch, if you will. But, like I said, the 2 or 3 of the main guys are actually, you can tell. I mean, granted, they're British actors, so maybe they just grew up playing soccer, but I like it when the athlete is believable. Because, again, I feel like there's a lot of good actors out there. So at least if it's important that they're playing a sport, make sure they can play the sport. Yeah. Because there's always a Kevin Costner or a Tony Danza that used to play minor league baseball. There's a Burt Reynolds, that played quarterback at Florida State to play quarterback in a longest yard. I mean, you can always find guys that have that background. And I think it just adds a lot to it. You don't want to be Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Wahlberg in a basketball movie. That's just sad.
Or Tom Cruise playing softball or Adam Sandler playing football.
Yeah, those are not good.
No.
Especially because all Tom Cruise had to do was literally hit fly balls standing there. And he looked incompetent at that.
Very incompetent. So, I was going to alert on my watch, Jason. And if those of you that are fond of following the Aaron Rodgers saga, we've got a new one coming up about Luka not wanting to stay in Dallas.
We talked about this probably at home. We talked about who's in a worse situation, whether it's Dame or Luka. Because I feel like both those guys are in situations where, based on the compensation they have as far as draft picks to give up, young players they could trade, and veterans on the team taking up cap space, neither of them is close to competing,
No.
Both those franchises are going to take 2 to 3 years to turn themselves around. It's just a fact. And I know Dallas, like Cuban, runs a nice organization. You got a beautiful locker room. You got no state taxes. But again, as people have pointed out, NBA players make so much money right now that as ridiculous it is to sound to 99% of the population, 10 million less here or there isn't that big a deal.
Well, again, this will be an interesting one to follow because he is the face of that franchise and the future of that franchise.
Yeah. But again, if you're Luka, you're looking around. You're stuck with KP, who seems like kind of a miserable. He seems like a very Aaron Rodgers-y. Just always unhappy. And he's obviously not good enough to be your number 2, and he's got a contract for 3 more years. You look at the free agents available this year, and one of the best ones, sadly, is Tim Hardaway Jr. No offense to the Hardaway family, but you've already got him on your team, and he's not going to make the difference. And I'm not sure, I'm sure Luka could get a little bit more efficient here and there as he gets older, but you can't play much better than he did. Sort of like the same thing with Dame. Like, neither of those guys can really be any better than they are, within reason. And there's no way to make those teams better without trading them.
Interesting enough, if I had the ability to pick Luke up and put him somewhere, you know where I put him?
Miami, huh?
Well, he's an international player. It's in international markets.
Yeah.
Good coaching, smart coaching, good systems. He comes in there. They surround him with a couple other pieces. That's a nice team.
And again, that's the culture. Miami is established that, Pat Riley and Spoelstra are one of the best coaches. They seem to, they do pretty well drafting no matter where they draft, with the Duncan Robinsons and the Tyler Heroes and the Bams, we're all later lottery picks or later in the draft picks. And Miami seems like they're always going to do whatever they can do to remain competitive, despite the fact that people make fun of them for not having a good fan base.
Yeah.
You have to see that.
Well, as we wind it up, I am going to go to a new restaurant tonight, Casa San Stefano, which is a Sicilian restaurant in Ybor City owned by Richard Gonsmart, who is the dean of Tampa restaurateurs, the founder of the owner of the Columbia restaurant and a number of other restaurant options here.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be, I'm excited about it, and that I will be my focus on my report next week on my food moments.
And I would do my best to have a food moment at some point, but, you just never really know.
Depends on what's going on during the week, right?
It really does.
All right, everybody, enjoy the baseball regionals, enjoy the NBA playoffs, enjoy the Major League Baseball new no cheating rules whenever those are announced.
Yeah.
And
NHL playoffs, and there's always football.
See what else is going on.
Yeah. All right.